braucht er was zum Essen, bitte sehr. Es macht ihn ein Geschwätz nicht satt, das schafft kein Essen her.
Rum links, 2, 3, rum links, 2, 3, wo dein Platz genossen ist, weil ich heim in die Arbeit einheimst und weil du auch ein Arbeiter bist.
Und weil der Mensch ein Mensch ist, drum hat der Stiefel im Gesicht nicht gern. Er will unter sich keinen Sklaven sehen und über sich keinen Herrn.
Drum links, 2, 3, drum links, 2, 3, wo dein Platz genossen ist, weil ich heim in die Arbeit einheimst und weil du auch ein Arbeiter bist.
Und weil der Prolet ein Prolet ist, drum wird ihn kein anderer befreien. Es kann die Befreiung der Arbeiter nur das Werk der Arbeiter sein.
Drum links, 2, 3, drum links, 2, 3, wo dein Platz genossen ist, weil ich heim in die Arbeit einheimst und weil du auch ein Arbeiter bist.
Здравствуйте, comrades. Welcome to Socialism Saturday. Socialism Saturday is where we watch the real far left, the farthest of the far left, the most dystopian of the dystopian. And we've got a really special episode today, and I'm very, very excited about it. But first, I want to say happy 420 to Naruto. Thank you. I definitely did not smoke any of the devil's lettuce today. I would never do such a thing. The good Christians would be damning me over on Twitter if I did that. But we're not going to talk too much about that. And we're not going to talk about beer because we got to get right into our episode today because our guests have a time limit. And so we want to make sure that we get as much out of this as we possibly can. But before we bring them on, I do just want to do a couple quick announcements, guys. Number one, if you have not yet subscribed to my Substack, which is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com, please make sure you head over there and do so. You can sign up for free email updates. This week, of course, we've been focused on what is going on at Columbia University with the students at Columbia creating a liberation zone on campus, and then the administration calling in the NYPD, and they cleared out the students, and that worked for about a half an hour until the students took over another lawn on Columbia. Now the protest size has quadrupled at Columbia, which I'm sure the president of Columbia, who just had to testify in front of Congress last week, which we watched that as well, I'm sure she's really happy about that. And then we heard an announcement today from Students for Justice in Palestine that this is now going to be a national thing. So welcome to the Summer of Love, guys. We knew the Summer of Love was coming. We didn't know exactly what form it was going to be coming in. Prior to October 7th, I think we could have surmised that the Summer of Love was going to be about trans and gender stuff because that's all the left was talking about. But since October 7th, the left has opened war on the evil Zionist settler colonists over in Israel and Palestine and that whole thing, which leaves us in an interesting position because I don't think many of us actually support Israel. So we have a rare moment probably of communion with the communist, which is maybe something we'll talk about tonight. But that is something I am going to be covering. I do think it's interesting. If you want to understand why the students are creating an autonomous zone at Columbia, what's going on with the Students for Justice in Palestine, head over to the Substack. I've got a couple posts that will explain that to you. And if you appreciate the work I'm doing and want to sign up as a supporter, you can do that for $8 a month or $80 a year. You will get a variety of perks when you support my work, to include access to movie night tomorrow in my supporter Discord. And actually, this is kind of interesting because we're watching kind of a commie movie tomorrow in my supporter Discord. I picked it out. I like this movie. It's got Alexander Skarsgård in it, and no one can be angry at me for that. And it's called The East. It's actually a really interesting movie. It came out about 10 years ago. And if you haven't seen it, I definitely encourage all of you to join me in the supporter Discord tomorrow at 8 p.m. And we will be watching that movie. How that works is you're going to get an email tomorrow as a member of my Substack that looks a little bit like this. Won't be this exact email because I'm going to send it out tomorrow. And what you do is you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the email, and that's where you're going to find the link to my supporter Discord. That's where you're going to find the links to the private Zoom calls that we do every week. It's where you're going to find your 10% off discount code to the Unwoke Art merch store and all that good stuff. And I do hope that you guys can join me for that. Well, to jump right into our content today, we have been discussing the launch of the new Revolutionary Communists of America Party for, well, a couple months now on the channel, and we've been following this when conservative influencers are sticking their head in the sand, except for Jordan Peterson, who got into an argument with them on Twitter. And, I've been one of the only people that's been doing regular coverage of this. We, of course, did find the video that they did at one of their Marxist school trainings back in October, I believe, in which they announced they want to raise the red flag of communism above the White House and overthrow the United States government. So that was a pretty great find. Of course, we did also go inside one of their recruiting calls right after they launched the party and recorded it and then released that video on the internet. And so this is something that we've been keeping an eye on. Naruto says, if you're going to super chatting questions, please be smart about it. Yeah, actually, Naruto, this is a really good point. And I really want to emphasize before I bring my guests on, guys, hang on. I'm going to make it all about me for a second. I want to emphasize a couple of things before we get started. Number one, Naruto is correct. We watch communism and socialism on this channel all the time. And I don't want to see any owning the libs questions. If you guys want to send in questions, that's fine. But I don't want to see any of this stuff like, if you're communist, then why do you engage in capitalism? Or if you're communist, then why don't you move to a communist? I don't want to see it. You know the answers to this. If you don't know the answers to this, go back and watch the streams where we've talked about this and we've shown communists saying this. So please, let's be better. We're not stupid. We know what these people believe. We know who they are. We watched a lot of their content. We have a rare opportunity today of communists that are actually willing to talk to us. So I want everyone to be on their best behavior. I want everyone to treat our guests cordially. And if there's any nonsense, I'm just going to block you out of the chat. And I want to encourage the mods to please moderate liberally. I don't want to see any bullshit. So that's it. I expect you guys to behave like adults. Dare to dream on the internet. I know. But I want to jump right into it, and I want to welcome the two members of the Revolutionary Communist Party of America that have joined me today. We have, I think, about an hour together. And so we'll have a chat with them, and then we'll do a debrief afterwards in the stream after they head out. We have Tom and we have JP. So I'm going to add them to the chat. Welcome, Tom and JP. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Just one correction: we're the Revolutionary Communists of America. We are not the Revolutionary Communist Party. Just to be clear.
Okay, but aren't you guys a party?
Yeah, but we're called the Revolutionary Communists of America, and we're building a new Revolutionary Communist Party in this country.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I guess maybe we start there. So what is your involvement with the Revolutionary Communists of America, and how did you guys get involved in this in the first place?
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, my outlook towards communism started when I was a child. I grew up in a union family, and I remember in the 1970s when there was a very bad recession that hit. My dad, who was a construction worker and a union worker, had been laid off for a long time. It created a lot of financial problems in my family at that time, and that made me start to look towards the ideas of Marxism, that I think things could be different. Now, I wouldn't say I was a Marxist from that day on, but it opened my mind to those ideas. And over time, I looked to these ideas because I think these are the best ideas to help humanity survive and thrive.
All right, fair enough. JP?
Yeah, I mean, as far as myself, I mean, also from a pretty young age, I started asking myself, why are there homeless people and yet there's empty houses? Why are there hungry people? Why are there people digging through garbage in a place like Washington, D.C., the capital of this country? People digging through garbage when there's, plenty of food to go around. Why is the world like this? I started thinking about this, started, looking at the world, and realized, I think pretty early that something had to change, and that the problem fundamentally was that there was a system that was set up where some people have a lot of money, even though they don't create all that wealth, and the rest of us have to share out a very small amount of money, and that there was a way to change things. I mean, it's basically, I realized capitalism is irrational. It's not rational. I mean, humans, we created this system just like we created every other aspect of our own social existence. And why do we have to have a situation where some people have to work 60, 70 hours a week and other people are forced to be unemployed? A lot of people who are unemployed, they would actually like to have a job. They'd like to work. They'd like to feel productive. They like to earn money and bring it home. Instead, they're forced, not to work, or they're forced to lose their homes. They're forced to, have the breakup of their family because they can't afford the rent and all the stresses and strains of having kids and everything and all the expenses of life today that brings to people. And it seemed pretty early on that something had to change and that something could change. It's not just, for me, socialism isn't just a good idea. It's actually possible. There is enough food to go around for everybody. There is enough housing. There is enough education. There is enough all these things if we decided to rationally organize society. And what's wonderful about this is I've been a communist for about 25 years now, I guess, is that now history is basically catching up with where my consciousness was way back in 1998. And now it's not just me, it's not just a few hundred, it's not just a few thousand people, but capitalism itself, the crisis of capitalism, has created millions and millions of communists. And there's now about 30 million people in this country, as I'm sure you've discussed on your show before, who self-identify as communists. And it wasn't people like me, it wasn't people like Tom, it wasn't just a handful of people that convinced these millions of people. It was the system itself and the problems of the system itself drove all these people to draw those conclusions. And so that was my starting point, and I think that's the starting point of a lot of people, especially a lot of young people today, who just don't see a future, don't see any way forward, any meaningful quality of life for them in the future on the basis of the continuation of capitalism.
How do you define capitalism?
It's private ownership of the means of production. It's a system that functions according to the market. It functions basically, capitalism it's a mode of production where the owner of the business hires workers, he pays them wages, right? Wages and benefits, but those workers create more value than they get paid in terms of wages and benefits, and he keeps that surplus value. From that surplus value, you get rent, interest, and profit, right? And then they reinvest it theoretically, right, to expand the production system. And everything is exchanged and distributed through a marketplace, right? So, for example, we talk about the question of food, for example. It's not that the hungry necessarily get food. It's the people can afford to purchase the food, they get the food. If there are people who are hungry and they don't have the money to pay for the food, they don't get the food. That's why you have, for example, in the United States, I think, according to the statistics, 44 million people are food insecure right now in this country. So.
Yeah, I'm sure you've studied history, right? And you recognize that humans didn't always have cities. We didn't always have these big civilizations. We didn't always have a state. We didn't always have, cell phones and all this kind of stuff. Long time ago, there was no state. There was no money. There was no organized religion. Even there weren't any of these things. Human societies evolved, changed over time, and there was a time when capitalism didn't exist. Over a period of centuries, eventually you have the rise of this system of capitalism, which is based not on the ownership of people, which is, a slave society is based on owning people, and those people create the wealth, and the owners of those slaves will then get to keep the benefits from that wealth production. Or systems, say in feudal Europe, for example, where land was the main source of wealth, and people who owned and controlled the land had serfs and other people, peasants that were working on that land, agricultural workers and stuff, giving them surplus, and they would basically through force take all that. Eventually, you have the evolution of capitalism, the development of capitalism, and you eventually have a series of bourgeois revolutions, capitalist revolutions, basically that entrenched capitalist property relations, which now dominate pretty much the whole of the world. And yeah, it's basically private ownership of the means of production. And I think one thing that a lot of sort of anti-communists misunderstand is when we talk about the means of production, we're talking about, for example, the Fortune 500 companies, which account for about 2/3 of GDP in this country. There's millions of companies in this country. You have a company of your own, but just 500 of those companies, that's like an infinitesimal percentage of the total number of companies that people have set up in this country. Just 500 account for about 2/3 of GDP. That's enormous concentration of wealth and power. We think that anything that's too big to fail, it shouldn't be bailed out by the government. We shouldn't be giving handouts to these corporations. They should be publicly owned like a utility, and they should be democratically planned and administered in the interests of everybody. That's basically what our program is for the socialist revolution. It's not to take people's TVs or even their little vacation home or their fishing boat or their kids. I mean, some people even accuse us in this day and age of wanting to steal their kids. I mean, that's ridiculous. I got kids of my own. Nobody's going to steal my kids. I mean, so that's what capitalism is to us. And honestly, it's not even anything personal. The 10 richest people on earth, as I'm sure you know, they doubled their wealth during the pandemic. They now own more than the bottom 50% of the planet. 10 people own more than, over 3 billion people. I mean, that's pretty crazy. But it's even there, it's nothing personal against the Bill Gateses and the Elon Musks of the world. It's the system. They're also products of the system. And we think that, in a true democracy, if we really are going to be a democratic society where the majority rules, then if the majority in this country and the majority around the world decide that we think we should distribute things differently, we should produce things differently, more equitably, not stealing from each other, not imposing anything on anybody, but democratically and equitably, organizing society, then I think we should be allowed to move in that direction. And I think what we're going to see is that millions and millions of people, including a lot of your own viewers, who are probably working class and are pissed off at the powers that be and at the billionaires and at Washington, and pissed off at the same kind of problems that communists are angry and upset about. You said, for example, that we might agree on the question of supporting the Zionist state of Israel's massacre of the Palestinian people. Maybe we agree that that's not a good thing. I mean, I think more and more we're going to see that the class issues are going to come to the fore. It's not a question of this idea or that idea, or of the kind of ridiculous way that a lot of the left presents itself. It's going to come down to the fundamental things. Do people who work for a living have a right to have a democratic say, a real democratic say over the way that our lives are organized? And I think the answer is yes.
All right, so a lot of questions in that, and you specifically brought up the views of anti-communists. You specifically brought up the views of my viewers. You specifically brought up the issue of children, which is definitely one of the questions I have. So let me. I don't know how much you guys know about my channel or what we do here, but literally 6 days a week, we watch far left content on my channel. We do deep dives into all sorts of far left radical revolutionary groups. I went undercover at the Socialism 2023 conference. I spent 3 days around 400 socialists in Chicago back in September. I was watching them up for a full year.
That was a public meeting, though, right?
No, really... They actually preemptively banned me, but I had registered under a fake name and I went anyway. And that's another issue. So we'll put that to the side for a second, because I do wonder why I can't just go and sit in meetings that you guys have and listen, because I get banned from these things over and over and over again. But we'll put that one for the side for a second. I want to talk about what my audience knows about what you guys define as private property. And when I say you guys, I'm not saying you specifically. I'm saying far leftists in general, because my views of what the far left believes doesn't come from things I've made up in my head. It comes from things that I've seen them say on video and that I have documented video evidence of. So here are the things that I have seen socialists and communists define as private property, not personal property, private property. My ability to own a home, my ability to own land, my ability to own intellectual property, my ability to own a rental property that I rent out, my ability to own a business, my ability to have parental rights over my children, and my individual liberties. And those might not be your group specifically, but if we zone in specifically on the issue of parental rights, you said that no human has the ability to own another human. Okay, but there are absolutely communists and socialists, and we saw this in the Communist Manifesto as well, that say that the nuclear family should be abolished, that parental rights should be abolished. There are entire books written about this. There are lecture tours about this. I can give you the names of the people pushing this stuff. And so I think my audience has a little bit of trouble understanding why you guys are saying we're just going after the billionaires with all these factories, when they've heard people say this is about giving up your, and you say this is not about taking over summer rental properties, but we can look in the news right now and see the squatters' rights movement, where they are specifically instructing people to go and take over these rental properties so that they are taken away from the owners that bought and paid for those properties and basically given to people who did nothing to earn them. So, like, how do you guys respond to the fact that we have very specific definitions provided by far leftists about what the issue of private property is?
Well, just because somebody says they're far leftist and they say whatever, that's I guess their opinion. But the thing is any of these groups that you're talking about, I can't speak for them. What we can speak for is ourselves. What do we want? We want to nationalize the top 500 corporations. We want a workers' government in this country and in other countries, and that we would want all these workers' governments to link up, and we'd have a socialist federation of the world. And with a nationalized planned economy on a national and international level, we can finally tackle this problem of global climate change, which is a serious problem, and that's affecting everybody's lives wherever you live. We only have one planet. There's no place to go to escape that problem. That problem has to be dealt with in a collective way, right? We want a society where everybody has a job and everyone's paid decent wages. And the money is there, by the way. If I don't know if you're aware, in 2023, if you look at the GDP, divide it by the wage and salary workers, the working class that makes that wealth, every worker in this country, on average, may produce something like over $225,000 worth of wealth. So there's lots of money there, right? But it's just going into the hands of a few, right? The richest 10% in the United States have almost 3/4 of all the wealth. So how can there are many families who have very limited freedom because they don't have a job, they have two jobs and they're not making that much money. The landlord keeps raising the rent. They're either forced to pay an enormous share of their wages into rent, or they get evicted, or they're forced to live in overcrowded conditions with other family, right? Think of how that affects people's rights to live the kind of life they want with them and their children. I mean, these are the real issues facing the American working class right now.
I would add also that, just like Tom said, we're not responsible for what any so-called leftist said online. We would disagree with probably a lot of what these people would say, but we have a program. If you go to communistusa.org, or our other website, socialistrevolution.org, you can check out our program. You can go find our program and see what we're fighting for. There's nothing about abolishing the nuclear family. There's nothing about taking away people's personal property. You can see for yourself what kind of things we're talking about and what we really fight for. And I think future generations are going to think about and decide how they want to organize society. They might decide that, I think the nuclear family hasn't always existed, as an example. I think that actually we're going to have much more humane conditions for children to grow up in, for families to grow up in, for women to grow up in, who aren't going to have to be, doing all the cooking and cleaning and taking care of the kids. If you have free healthcare, if you have free daycare, if you have well-paid, parental leave when you have a child, whether you adopt a child or you have a child or whatever, because you want to build a family. If you have stronger community ties, you have more people, let's say you don't have grandparents around, maybe the next door neighbors are going to help out with the kid, or maybe the, other people in your community, in your apartment building or in your neighborhood or whatever. I think just a much more socialized way, not imposed by anybody, but just because we are social beings. Humans are social beings. We want to help take care of each other. I think we want to help take care of kids. So the idea that we, the Revolutionary Communists of America, that we want to take away, anybody's kids is ridiculous. Check out our program. Seriously, I think it'd be interesting if you did a review of our program and went through it point by point at some point, and see how many points of agreement we actually might have.
Well, maybe you guys can come back and we can do that another day. But I want to go back to this issue of the family, because I can point to articles in major media outlets written by self-professed socialists in the article that
That's not
argue.
us. We're not responsible for what they write.
However, but when you guys are arguing for a democratically controlled society, which just means socialism, the United States of America is not a democracy; it's a republic. So when you guys say democracy, you mean
what do you mean? What do you mean?
Don't interrupt me. Hang on. I didn't interrupt you.
Sorry. Go on.
Finish. When you guys say democracy, you guys are talking about every single person gets a vote in the thing. That's not how the United States currently works. The founders didn't set it up that way for a reason. You guys want to change that. So when you guys say democracy, you mean a socialist government, a socialist form of governing. Now, can you guarantee, because you are acknowledging that there are these other far leftist groups out there that do want to abolish the nuclear family? It was explicit in the Communist Manifesto. There are people who are carrying that today. There are people who are directly going after parental rights today in the K through 12 public schools, calling themselves Marxists, calling themselves socialists. And so we have to acknowledge that this is a real thing that does exist. I'm not saying that you specifically are responsible for that, but if you want to institute a democratically controlled society, can you guarantee us that the elements that want to abolish the nuclear family and take away parental rights are not going to somehow get in control of society and then execute their plan to do so?
If I could just say, the communists support the right, the freedom of people to live the life they want to live. By the way, we don't think people should either be required to be in a nuclear family, nor should they be prevented from being in a nuclear family. By the way, are you arguing against a nuclear family versus an extended family? Maybe some people prefer the extended family. People can live in varieties of different ways, and they shouldn't be required or restricted to live according to one way or another. John was pointing out, if you look at history, human society has been organized in different ways at different times. We don't know what the future pretends. I will say this, though. It's you talk about the nuclear family. The biggest thing that's destroying the nuclear family now, it's not some leftist that says we want to abolish the family, which I don't know. What are you going to do? Pass a law that you're going to abolish? I mean, it's kind of
literally yes. That's what they're trying to do.
But what is ruining the nuclear family right now? It's the capitalism. It's economic system. By the way, it's also capitalism forces people to migrate for work. Right? You have a huge international refugee problem right now. That's breaking up families all around the world. Right? You've got families in the United States. People are forced to move, let's say, from New England to California for work or wherever. That can break up families. You have all kinds of economic stress and financial stress and other things like that create complicated problems that interfere. How about the fact that you've got a society that's crumbling? You send your kids to school and they might get shot at school. I mean, look at that phenomena that's going on in the United States. And I'll also say one more thing too. You talk about the United States as a republic, right? Well, listen, the United States is really, if you look at the essence, it's a dictatorship of the capitalist class. This government, most Americans, I think, feel that this government doesn't represent them. And not just this government, not just this president, but any of these presidents. The whole governmental system doesn't represent them. It's not one person, one vote, even in the Republican form, right? As you see, like the way the Senate is divided. And by the way, if you look back at the founding fathers, when they had the Constitution, what did they do? There was actually the Articles of Confederation, where the governing body, right? They didn't like that. This group of people meet in secret, right? Self-selected group of people, and then they write up this Constitution. Oh, and then it gets voted on. Yes, it gets voted on. What was the franchise at the time when they voted for the Constitution? Who could vote, right? In the 13 original states, you had to be a male, you had to be 21 years or older, and you had to own a certain amount of property, depending on which state you lived in, was how much property. Everyone else was excluded from that vote, right? So there's nothing that's democratic about this. The big corporations call the shots. They control both political parties, and a lot of American workers are fed up with this, and that's why you're seeing a growth in the ideas socialism.
But I can't help but notice that neither of you answered my question, which is, in a democratically socialist controlled society, that can you guarantee that some regime won't come into power that will abolish the nuclear family and take away parental rights?
Well, here's the deal. The word democracy comes from Greek, right? And it means rule of the people. And the United States, as Tom was saying, is formally a representative democracy, right? We have a constitution. It is a republic. I'd be in favor of a republic as well. I'm in favor of a workers' republic. I'm in favor of workers' democracy. What Tom was saying is that in this country today, what we have is what we would call a bourgeois democracy, i.e., the rule of the people who really call the shots are the bourgeois. That's the ruling class. That's the capitalists. That's the people that own and control the means of production. What we're talking about, a workers' democracy, I mean, you seem to kind of maybe be mocking the idea that everybody should have a vote and everybody should have a say. Everybody should have a right to express their opinions. Everybody, and after we have a discussion and debate, we take a vote and majority rules. I can't guarantee that what future generations are going to decide. Who could guarantee that? But what I can say is that the idea that a tiny handful of people is going to come in and basically impose themselves on anybody else goes counter to basically any understanding of democracy that I see. And I think that the basis for a workers' democracy would be an economy where people have good jobs, they're well-paid jobs, where we don't have to work so many hours a week that we don't have time to educate ourselves, we don't have time to relax, we don't have time to spend with family and friends. And if we reduce the work week, say we cut the work week to 20 hours a week, we raise the minimum wage to $30 an hour, we cut the housing costs down to 10% of your wages, you have a lot more time, you have a lot more flexibility, a lot more mental health in order to really participate in daily life and to interact with your neighbors and with your community and to take decisions. Then I think people are I mean, where are you going to get a regime that's going to appear out of nowhere magically to take people's children and to abolish the nuclear family? That's actually not in the Communist Manifesto.
So
it's not in Capital.
It is.
It's not in the writings of Marx,
Hang
Engels,
on,
and
JP.
Trotsky.
Come on.
Show me the quote.
No. We're not gonna play that game. But we know it's in the Communist
When
Manifesto.
you say it's there, show me.
I only have you for an hour. If you want to stay longer, then I'd be more than happy to. No. Do you want to stay longer than an hour?
I'll stay an extra 10 minutes. Sure.
No. We're not gonna play that game today. That the extra 10 minutes is not going to be enough time for me to actually go dig through the Communist Manifesto on the fly. If you want to come back and you want to evaluate,
it's a short
all right,
book. It's a
we're
very
moving
short
on
book.
now because you just said that homeowner that housing.
I'll stay half an hour if it takes you half an hour to find.
Well, perhaps after I ask a question, we can do it at the end if you really want to come back to it. But what you said is that housing costs are going to be reduced to 10% of someone's income. How are you going to do that if you guys don't own all the houses?
Who's us guys? How are you
going to lower housing costs to 10% of someone's income if the government doesn't own all the houses?
See, that's the key question. Who is the government? We were just talking about a workers' democracy, right? Yeah, no, not me. I'm not the government. The people, the workers, the majority would form the government.
So there's no private ownership of houses, is what we're saying. There's no private.
I'm not saying no. I'm not saying you're going to abolish that. No, I think look, people who own their homes, people who paid their 30-year mortgage. Look, most people don't even own their homes nowadays. The bank owns it. If you have a mortgage, you don't own your home. The bank owns it, and if you don't make your payments, you're going to lose your house. We're talking about they're the ones who really control most of the housing in this country.
But what if I own my house and I want to rent out my house and I want to set a certain rental price for my house?
Do you have
You're
a
not
house?
allowing me to do that. Yes, I do.
I mean, but do you have an extra house?
Yes.
And that's what you live off of?
It's my property. It's my house. Why can't I decide what I want to do with my house? I pay for my house.
You could decide that. You could decide that. But we're gonna have public housing that's high quality. We're gonna build good quality housing.
Projects.
And excuse me.
The projects. We know
not the projects. Not the projects. You're equating what exists under capitalism with the potential future for humanity in a socialist future. No, if you want to charge people, I don't know, $5,000 a month, and the workers' government has democratically agreed that $500 a month is a more fair price, you're welcome to try to get your home rented to someone for $5,000 a month. Probably not going to find a lot of renters when they can get an equally high quality home for say $500 a month. I mean, we're not going to, we're going to use socialist communists, we're going to use economics as well in order to get people to just have a better quality of life. So we don't have to take away that second home from you. We're talking about the big banks. We're talking about the big, huge rental companies. I mean, look it up, do the research, see who really controls housing. It's the big banks. This place like Chase Manhattan, Coldwell Banker. I mean, these are the big corporations, not little old you. We're not interested in your house.
If you watch on 60 Minutes, I think it was last year. 60 Minutes is the bourgeois press, right? CBS, right? It's one of the top 500 corporations. They had a whole story about how many private homes are being bought up by corporations, and it's pricing people out of the market so they can't buy the home, so they're forced to rent their home from these corporations, right? So what we're saying is a workers' government. We would take over these corporate-owned homes, and it would be part of the government, housing thing under a workers' government. It wouldn't be these horrible slums that the capitalist government creates, but we want good quality housing, but that also is cheap, so that people can have a good place to live, and they're not working 40 hours a week, and 90% of their wages is going to pay for rent or pay mortgage and other expenses, property tax expenses, etc.
All right. I want to go to some questions that are coming in from the chat because we are getting some super chats in. Rottweiler says, what's the incentive for innovation in the Marxist utopia without the profit motive? How will the regime incentivize and force people to work and innovate? Who will be in charge of doing so?
Well, first of all, at the beginning, when the workers government is established in this country, right, everybody will have a job and everyone's going to be paid decent wages. But yes, you do have to incentivize work in the sense you have to pay people to go to work. But one thing we could do, and again, I point to that number about how the average worker, how much wealth they're creating, right? You could raise wages and lower the work week at the same time. So in other words, people could actually, instead of working 40 hours a week, you could work 20 hours a week and you could still get an increase in pay, right? So that's one incentive. The other thing is, as you get more free time, because the work week is shorter, and also you could retire younger. Let's say you could retire at age 50. We could have a pension at 50, right? When you have all that free time, some of that free time, not all of it, some of it will be the human being will engage in labor. They'll be engaged in productive activity. They won't be engaged in work, but they're going to be involved in labor. Stuff that you want to do that's productive because you want to do it, not because you have to do it. Eventually in society, more and more goods and services are going to be produced through the free time that people have, and less will be produced from the work time. And of course, because of productivity of labor, you raise productivity of labor. What we're talking about is the average person, what they can produce in 1 hour, right? When you increase productivity, that means you could actually shorten the work week and still keep production high. And by doing this, you can eventually see a society where you don't have to compel people to work, because you get to such a high level of production and you have so much free time on your hands to do things that are also productive that you don't need to require work. But if at first, in a transitional phase, you do need to incentivize work, but the incentive will be that people will be getting less, will have to work less than they're working now, and they'll be getting more benefit from it. Also, they'd get other benefits like free healthcare, free mass transportation.
What happens in your society to people who won't work?
Well, here, I can answer that after just addressing the earlier point quickly. Okay. I mean, do you have any hobbies? Do you have any things that you like to do just for fun? Any creative outlets that you like?
Yeah, of course. And what I did is I turned my hobbies into a business that I started basically for free. And so I kind of wonder why other people can't do that. But yes, I have hobbies.
Well, okay, I think humans are basically creative beings, and we want to work. I mean, we have these hands, we have these brains for a reason. We want to create things, we want to innovate, we want to make our lives easier. The whole trek of human technology, from the invention of the first tools, even before stone tools, we had other kinds of tools, was an attempt to make life easier, was an attempt to make getting the calories you need, getting shelter, getting the needs of life as easily as possible. Why can't we use the technology that we have today in order to provide those necessities for everybody? I think people are still going to want to be, I think there's still going to be competition. You want to be the best poet. You want to be the best car mechanic. You want to be the best track and field athlete. You want to be whatever, baseball player, football player, whatever it is, people are still going to want to compete. But under capitalism, the losers end up having to sleep in a gutter or freezing to death. How many veterans do we hear about that end up freezing to death on the streets of this country? Or whereas under socialism, you lost, okay, maybe you don't get the the extra applause or the extra likes on your little creative project, but it doesn't mean that you have to starve to death or you have to be humiliated or that you have to that you lose completely. And what was this next question? Sorry, I missed the. Oh yeah, what are we going to do? Well, which people are we talking about that don't want to work?
Anyone. What, like you guys are talking about not making more voluntary.
2-year-olds, so what are we going to do with them?
Anyone.
Well, we're going to provide them. Well, we'll give 2-year-olds
that's
excellent.
a throwaway.
Excellent.
Don't do that.
How
Don't
about
do
old
that.
people?
We're asking you how
people?
about an able-bodied 18-year-old that just doesn't want to work because they don't want to?
Well, because they don't want to work at McDonald's for minimum wage.
Because they don't want to work at all.
Society. I really doubt that. I think once you have a completely different way of organizing society, and where there's positive peer pressure to do productive things. Well, first of all, an 18-year-old should probably still be in school. 18-year-olds should be going either to high school or maybe going off to college, continuing their education. I think that's kind of a straw man argument to say that people don't want to work. And you take a couple of examples from today's society and say that people don't want to work. I think most people do want to work, and they want to do something productive.
Okay,
if we give them an interesting job and we give them good wages, like Tom was saying, why would they not want to work? Why would they not want to contribute usefully to society?
So let's go back to the example that you asked me if I have a hobby, and I said I turned my hobby into a business. I literally have a merchandise store that I started for free because, hang on, don't interrupt me, that I have a print on demand. I have a free storefront. I like everything I did. I used AI to make the merch. I did all of that basically for free. Anyone can do that. And then it turned into a business. So I guess I'm a little confused about why the people who you say can't find a job can't go online, and they could even use, if they don't have a computer or internet access, they can go to their local public library. They can find it there just to get started and literally do what I did and create a business for free. Why do they need you guys to take over the federal government, raise the red flag of communism above the White House in order for them to be able to create a business that can sustain them?
It's not about, first of all, it's not about us taking over the White House or any that.
It is. I have you guys on tape saying it.
What we're saying is, what we're saying is the mass of the working class organized as a class with its parties and with its institutions, its trade unions, stuff. That working class would take power, right? And that
was your event, right? That was your event. That was your Marxist school in New York.
Yeah. Yep.
And he literally said, raise the red flag of communism.
I know.
Yes, the working class will do that. Not any of us.
I know that's not written.
Yes, we know you're collectivists.
Wait, I thought you said you weren't going to have these sort of cheap shot gotcha moments.
But when you guys are denying things that we have on video of you guys saying,
well, here's a quick question: Who buys these products that are created by AI and printed in China or wherever?
Mine aren't printed in China. Mine are printed in the U.S. But normal people who
buys these things?
Where did they get them? People in the chat.
Where did they get the money
from their job?
So if everybody did that, everybody can do that. Anybody can do it. Yes. Then where would you get? So everybody's just buying each other's stuff that's printed by AI.
Yes, absolutely.
That's your model for
the free market.
Humanity.
This is how this works. I make cool stuff that you want, you buy it. You make cool stuff that I want, I buy it. That is how the free market works. There are all sorts of communities that literally only sell to each other, and socialists and leftists are some of those communities. You guys have entire publishing houses. You guys have entire publishing houses where you only publish books for other leftists that only exist because leftists buy the books. So you guys have insular economies as well. And again, I'm not saying that my way is necessarily the right path for everyone. I'm just really confused about what is so hard in this day and age about starting a small business under capitalism that you can basically do for free using free tools on the internet. Why are we pretending that isn't a thing that anyone can do if in your world they would want to be doing these things anyway?
No, I don't think starting a small business is what I had in mind of a hobby. You're creating little logoed T-shirts or mugs or whatever it is, and selling it to people.
Yep,
That's not really a hobby. I'm talking about, do you like to go out and
it
work on a
is.
car? Do you like to
I
do
love making
carpentry?
cool merch. I think it's cool. I love doing art with my community. I think it's cool. We then put that stuff on merch and we sell it. That's capitalism. Like, I mean, this isn't hard. Anyone can do it.
Anyone can do it.
Yes.
Okay, what about an illiterate, unemployed person in the middle of India? Why can't they do
I
it?
don't care about people, and to be very honest, and you're not gonna
Oh,
like this answer, I don't care about people in India because I'm an American. I care
what
about
about
Americans.
the millions of people, of kids in this country who go hungry? People who are illiterate in this country,
What
people who don't have access to quality housing or anything, people who are homeless children in this country. You think they can just go make a cool art and
I
start a
I
little
actually do. I actually do.
show?
I think that those children still have access to computers in schools. I think those children still have access to public libraries. I think those children have access to resources that I pay for through my taxes, through the government, either state government or federal government or whatever. Now, isn't an ideal situation? No, of course it's not. But there are many instances of people growing up in meager existences, being
Well, what
homeless,
about
not having let me finish, not having a lot of resources, not even having parental support, and they go on to build businesses or to do great things and they make a ton of money and they have a great life. Why do you not believe in people's ability to do for themselves and to lift themselves up? Why does the government have to do it for them?
There's record amount of homelessness right now in this country. Record amount of, you've got tent cities everywhere, not just in New York, not just in San Francisco, even places like Portland, Maine. There's a tent city, and the government comes and knocks these people out of their tents. You have all this going. Are you saying that this is just growing just for the simple reason that all of a sudden people said, I don't want to do anything I don't want to use the computer to sell merch. I mean, this is ridiculous. I
Yeah.
mean, look, the vast majority of
I
people
think the
in
people in
this
those tent
country,
cities are on drugs and they could get off drugs and not do that anymore. But hey,
Well, here's a question. When, say in 2008, when a lot of people lost their jobs, a lot of people with good quality jobs, right? Back when you remember 2008, the crisis, right?
mhm.
All those people that were laid off, millions and millions of people, hundreds of thousands of people a month, some of those months, were
Yep.
those people lazy? Were those people, they didn't want to work? They want,
Um,
why did they lose their jobs?
I lost my job in 2008, and do you know what I did? I went and I got another job. And I got a
Okay,
better job that actually paid me
why
more
did you
money.
lose that first job? Why did you lose that first job?
Because I did, because that's the way the world works. Sometimes people lose jobs, and then I went out and I spent about a month job
Sometimes
hunting, and I
millions
got
of
another
people
job.
lose jobs. I mean, is that rational that
Right.
millions of people, one day millions of
Yes.
people are usefully employed, the next day they're not usefully
And
employed?
and those people can go out and find other jobs, or they can build businesses, or they can do whatever like people lose their jobs all the time, and they don't like wither away and die and become like communists that then want the government to do anything for them. They go out and they get another job.
So you said you don't care about people from other countries, right?
No, not really, because I
No.
focus on America.
Okay,
I
now
care about
now,
Americans.
but most Americans immigrated here at some point. Their families immigrated here at some point in the past. So is it borders closed now? Only people living here now
Absolutely.
are Americans?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Closed
Okay.
borders. I'm not in favor of
Well,
open borders.
100 years ago, people would have said the same thing. They probably would have kept your people out, but they
I
came
mean,
anyway.
well, but we're not dealing with 100 years ago. We're dealing with today. Like,
Do
why
you,
can't we focus on today?
Yeah, let's focus
did you
on today
support the
then.
government breaking up the nuclear family at the border when they were separating the kids from their
We're
parents?
not well, that didn't actually happen. That was not
Oh, it
that was
didn't
not
happen?
reported
It's
correctly
happening
in the
right now under
Smithsonian
Joe Biden.
Desk.
It's happening now. It happened under
I
Trump. It's happening
yeah.
right now.
Well, then they should go back to their country and take their family with them is generally my opinion. They shouldn't be coming here in the first place. But I want to move on to other questions from Human Centipede. Has real communism ever been tried?
No, we
Nope.
haven't got there yet.
Why? Why will it be different this time?
In the Russian Revolution, you had the workers take power in that one country. They weren't going to build a socialist society in one country. What their hope was is the workers gaining control in Russia, that revolution would spread, and the revolution did spread. There were revolution in Finland in 1918, Germany 1918, 1919, Austria, Hungary, Italy, Ireland. You can go through a whole series of countries where there were revolutions. The thing is that in Russia, the working class had leadership. They had the Bolshevik Party. In these other countries, they didn't have leadership, or let's put it this way, the leadership of the working class was reformist. They sabotaged the revolution. As a result, Russia got isolated. It was a poor and backward country. And as a result, the revolution degenerated, a bureaucracy took place. In order to get to real communism, the working class needs to take power. We need to have workers' governments in a series of countries, including advanced, urbanized, industrialized, capitalist countries, like the United States, for example. And then through that, under a workers' federation, socialist federation, then we can see a progress to a different kind of world. But no, we haven't got there yet.
Okay, I want to just get this question in, and John, maybe you can answer in relation to this question, just because we're running out of time. So I want to make sure we get as many in as possible. Kazmar says, "Thank you, Tom and JP, for joining us. Is it your goal to have communism as a choice on the ballot, and how will communism be implemented as a structured society?" And I think this is an important question because, again, we have you guys on video saying that you want to overthrow the capitalist government and raise the red flag of communism above the White House. Do you view that as a violent overthrow of the government, or do you view it as putting communism on the ballot and having it happen that way?
Well, I think that's a very one-sided way of posing the question. Well, like we said earlier, we have a representative democracy right now, which means that what you do is do you vote for have you ever voted for the president of the United States?
Of course.
No, you haven't. You've never voted for the president of the United States ever.
Oh, you're doing a trick question. Okay, I see.
Well, it's not a trick question. The point is that it's not really a democracy, is what Tom was saying. They don't even, the founding fathers didn't even trust the ordinary people to elect the number one official in the country. No American has ever elected a president. People only vote for electors who then go and they're not even compelled to vote for the person who the people who elected them said they wanted elected. So the point is that it's not really a democracy. What we want is a workers' democracy, a direct participatory democracy, where we elect officials directly at every level of government, and those people are recallable. If they don't immediately satisfy our demands or within a reasonable period of time, we should be able to recall those people and send someone else. Let's say we elect you to go represent us in whatever city you live in, at the local council, to figure out how we should, prioritize the use of the resources of that city. And we're very satisfied with you, so we might elect you again next time. But let's say we're not satisfied. We could organize a recall of you and bring you back. And in this way, at every level of government, we would basically have a direct and accountable representative, not representative democracy, but a direct and participatory democracy, where we could take decisions on different things. It's not about violence or not violent.
But hang on. I'm not sure you answered the question though, because again, on that video that I have of you guys, I'm not going to quote the person directly, but this is effectively what he said, that he wanted to use the loudspeakers in Washington D.C. that were used on January 6th to make announcements and stuff. He wanted to use those loudspeakers to announce the United States House of Representatives is empty. So for me, that kind of seems like you guys are not talking about just electing your people through direct democracy to the House of Representatives. It seems like you guys are trying to do something to overthrow the current elected representatives and to completely empty out the House of Representatives so that you can then replace it with your people. Do you understand my perception here?
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, we would be very happy to just transform the society through elections. That would be fine. My guess is that as our movement grows, as we gain more influence among the working class, way before we're able to win over a majority, the capitalist class will use every method, every deceitful method they can to cut across any attempt to do that. And we've seen that happen throughout history. Take a look at Chile, 1973, with the Pinochet regime, and what where they turned a sports stadium into a torture chamber and a murder house. So we believe the working class will have to be prepared to fight against that. But if the capitalist class is willing to just allow elections, and the mass workers party can get elected, and we can transform society through that, there would be nobody happier than us. Wouldn't
you be talking about the abolition of the current United States Constitution in order for that to happen?
Well, people should be able to vote for whatever system of government they want. This Constitution, who's voted on this? What, people in 1789, that limited franchise voted? We haven't had a vote on the Constitution. So should American people have the right to change their constitution if they want, right? The way that this
I mean,
constitution,
the Declaration of Independence starts with that premise that
Yeah.
people should have the right to decide what kind of government they want, what kind of relationship they want with their government.
But don't we
Would you not agree with
don't we
that?
have a process to do that though? Like if people don't want the Constitution, there's a process that takes place to do it. But what I've heard you guys saying, and I'm talking about your group specifically, I've heard you guys say you want to abolish the House of Representatives, abolish the Constitution, abolish the United States
No.
Senate, abolish the use as
What our
court.
comrade was
Like,
saying, what our comrade was saying is he wanted to announce the decision of the people, which is that these institutions are no longer governing us. We are now governing ourselves in a genuine workers' democracy. Not that a tiny group of people
But how does
has
that
gone in and
happen?
kicked everybody out or anything like that.
But how does that happen if you don't abolish the U.S. Constitution?
Well, it wouldn't be abolished by decree. If the majority if it's a democracy and the majority rules, right? Would you agree with that? Democracy means the majority rules.
I think democracy, as you guys use it, means a socialist government. So that's
Well,
my
I
definition.
just gave you my definition.
But
Us
but we
guys'
but
definition
your
is majority
definition
rules.
is majority rules, meaning a socialist government.
No, not necessarily. But the socialists wouldn't necessarily be the majority.
look,
But we
look
would argue for socialist policies. We would argue for money to go towards feeding people, housing people, for healthcare, universal healthcare, things like that, instead of bombing people in Gaza, as an example. We would argue for that, and if a majority of people agreed with us, we would expect that majority, the decision of that majority to be respected. Look, we don't agree with the policies that are imposed on us today, but we understand we're a minority, so we at this point in time, we have to submit to those decisions. We have to submit to the fact that our tax dollars goes towards bombing people in other countries, towards blowing up Palestinian women and children. We don't agree with that. But in the future, when we think we're going to get a majority of Americans who are going to think that socialist policies are the way forward, we would just like our majority decision to be respected. Could you accept that if a majority of Americans, not Tom and myself or Antonio who you keep referring to in that video, but literally the majority of the American people decides that we want to have a different way of organizing society, would you accept that?
No, I would probably vote for the state that I live in to secede from the union and be perfectly fine with that, because I don't want to live in a communist world. I don't want that. I'm an anarcho-capitalist. I like capitalism. I like the free markets. So if you guys managed to take over the government and abolish the Constitution and raise the red flag of communism above the White House, what I would do is advocate for New Hampshire, my state, to secede from the union and create our own anarcho-capistan and do what we want to do here. Which brings me to Nick's question, which I think is a really good one. What happens to people in your society who reject communism?
by the way, can I just tell you this? New Hampshire state constitution, I think it's in the constitution that people have the right to revolution.
Yes,
So
they do. We utilize that, but we're not going to do the
it's unique to that. But I also,
it is.
I also just want to say that,
and that's a great clause in the state constitution.
The article,
it is. I agree.
The Articles of Confederation, they had a system to change that too, but that was just dumped, and they put this constitution just to do that. But I'll tell you, the thing is that under a socialist system, when we have a workers' government, there may be some people who disagree. They have a right to participate in the political process. They can make their arguments forward as long as people want to discuss and debate politically and they respect the will of the majority. It's fine with us.
Yeah, you absolutely could argue for your anarcho-capitalist utopia in New Hampshire, and we might even help you organize a little commune of anarcho-capitalists on some nice land up there for you to organize your little society, to give it a try, see if that's really how you want to live. Like Tom said, we're not about telling anybody how they should organize their lives, but I'll say it this way. Look, when we talk about majority rule, we're talking about like the big picture decisions. For example, should we send money to bomb children in Gaza or not? If the majority says no, then we would stop sending that money. I understand that. But most questions of daily life, it's not a question of imposing the same thing on everybody. Just like when you're on an airplane and they say, do you want chicken or pasta? you usually, unless they've run out of one option or the other, you get to choose what you want, right? If 60% of the people on the plane want chicken, 60% get chicken. If 40% want pasta, then they get pasta. And we can organize the economy in a way to make sure that people get the things that they want. We're not going to force everybody to eat chicken if they don't want to eat chicken. And the same goes for every basic aspect of life, of daily life. That's what we're talking about. So it's not like, oh, you reject communism, or you're going to be put into a gulag, you're going to be put into a concentration camp. No, you disagree, no problem. As long as everybody has food, housing, healthcare, shelter, I think people are going to get along pretty well, and they can disagree about all kinds of different stuff.
Well, I'm really glad you brought up the question of food, JP, and this will be the last question I put out there, and then you guys are welcome to do any closing remarks. I want to be respectful of your time because I do appreciate you being here, but I think we're all a little curious. In the communist utopia, who is in charge of distributing the food?
Well, you have huge food corporations right now that distribute most of the food. So we would nationalize those food corporations, put it under democratic workers' control, and it'd be part of a democratic planned system. But I think where we would move towards, this way I think society would move towards, is you'd have a lot of worker cooperative restaurants and cafeterias. And I think a lot of people would tend to eat socially. It wouldn't be like we'd be just locked up in our house or our apartment eating alone, but we would go out and eat with people in a social manner. And I think, by the way, in those various worker cooperative restaurants, I think that it's like JP was saying before, you'd have a lot of competition among people trying to make good, healthy food taste good. And so I think the richness that would develop with food and cuisine under socialism, would be remarkable.
And I think the big picture is this: they found that 4 companies in this country today, 4 companies basically control the vast majority of food distribution and production in this country. We would nationalize those companies. We would have them under public democratic control, and we would use technology. Just like when you go to the grocery store today and you go through the self-checkout. I don't know if they have self-checkout in New Hampshire or not, but if you go through self-checkout, it registers, bag of pasta is not in the store anymore. It registers in a central place. We're going to use technology then to reorder some pasta. We're going to, so that the next person, or it's Easter. We're going to have we need Easter candy for kids instead of Halloween candy, whatever it is. I mean, we're going to take advantage of all the technology that's been developed under capitalism, but we're going to use it in a way to actually meet everybody's needs. I don't see what's so complicated about that.
All right. Fair enough. Well, I do want to be respectful of your guys' time. And Kate here actually has an interesting super chat. For better or worse, I think I'd like Tom and JP to come with us to Socialism Saturday in the future and see how they react. I would love to get you guys to watch an episode of Queer Marxism with me so you guys can see what's going to come to co-opt your party sooner rather than later, because they're already starting to. You guys just don't know it yet. But the invitation is always open. And I would love to come to your Marxist school. Would you guys let me come to Marxist school?
100%. We'll have a Marxist school sometime in the fall in New York City. That's probably the closest one. Come on down.
I would love to come, and I will take you guys up on that, and hopefully I don't get kicked out. I don't get harassed. I'm gonna play nice with everyone.
Look, despite a little bit of just going back and forth here, this has been pretty respectful discussion. Obviously, 1 hour isn't a lot of time to really elaborate on your ideas or our own ideas. But if you're respectful at that meeting, of course, nobody's going to kick you out. Just
cool. Fair enough. Well, I'll look forward to that.
But I warn you, being surrounded by hundreds of communists, you might just get convinced. You might pick up a copy. You might pick up the latest copy of the communist newspaper and read through it and decide that you actually are in favor of a worldwide intifada, by which we mean a worldwide socialist revolution that would lay the foundations for communism for our kids and our grandkids.
Well,
you might go to marxistbooks.com and start buying a lot of our literature, right?
You got to get your capitalism in there, don't you? Well, I do appreciate the acknowledgement that I would be able to go to Marxist school. I will definitely take you guys up on that. I will make it a priority. I'm not even joking about it. So we'll look forward to that in the fall. And I do want to thank you guys for being here. And I do just want to give each of you kind of a last chance to do any closing thoughts.
I'll just say, anybody who's watching this, if you agree that this society is not just in the United States but worldwide is going down the tubes, And that the reason is capitalism. It's the capitalist system. The capitalist system, whatever progressive elements it had in its earlier period, it's now a completely reactionary system. And the world, we don't have to live like this. We don't have to just lose to climate change. We don't have to just accept that 44 million people in this country alone are food insecure, never mind the starving millions around the world. That we could have a society which we could use the natural resources of the world, the technology of the world, and have a democratically planned society where everybody's needs are met. And that's the future we could have if we band together as the working class and change society.
And look, you said that you don't care about people in other countries, but climate change affects everybody on this planet, and climate change does not respect borders. I'll tell you that much. The World Division of Labor does not respect borders. Capital doesn't respect borders. The U.S. has a multi-billion-dollar trade deficit. The United States is not self-sufficient. We're a global economy. We're a global species, and what happens in this country is going to affect what happens in the rest of the world, and vice versa. We can't avoid it. So I think it's impossible not to have an internationalist outlook in this world. And I would say to your viewers and your supporters that if you're interested enough, if you're pissed off enough to watch videos about socialism on a weekly basis. And I think it means that you are trying to find answers to the problems in the society. You think there's something going wrong in this country. You obviously, if you're an anarcho-capitalist, you probably don't support this government either. I mean, how can you be an anarchist and support this kind of government either? I don't think you support this government either. So I think people are looking for answers. And I think you'd be surprised that if you leave aside the circus show of most of the left, all the the stuff that the bread and butter of most of your programming, I would imagine, most of the stuff that's out there, if you really look at the serious communists, and I think what I appreciated about something you wrote a few weeks ago, I think on Twitter, Carlin, was you said, these people are the real deal. These people are serious, and that's why they're going to win. Well, we are going to win because we are genuine communists. We're genuine revolutionary Marxists. We're not just here just to tinker with things. We're here to fundamentally change things, and we think that the majority of this country is eventually going to agree with us. And when that happens, then we'll have the kinds of changes we're talking about. Until then, we're just going to continue selling our papers. We're going to continue talking to people. We're going to continue trying to find new members, and we're going to keep connecting with this communist generation, which has emerged on the basis of the contradictions and the crisis of capitalism itself. And we're going to get more and more people to support the revolutionary communists of America. And eventually, we really do believe we're going to see the socialist revolution in our lifetime. So we invite you all to join in, or if you don't, you can go have an anarcho-capitalist commune in the woods of New Hampshire somewhere, and we're not going to stop you from doing that.
Well, excellent. It's good to hear that. Well, I do appreciate you guys coming out today. You all have an open invite. And if anyone else from your group wants to come talk to me, I think we demonstrated that I definitely don't agree with your ideas, but I think we can have a respectful dialogue where we can share ideas. You guys got to say what you wanted to say. I got to say what I wanted to say. And so you guys are welcome back. If anyone else in your group wants to come talk to me, there's an open invite as well. So I appreciate your guys' time and openness to sharing your ideas with us.
And we'll see you at the New York Marxist School.
Yes, you will.
Bring lots of money to buy lots of books so you can actually read, and maybe by then you will find that quote in the Communist Manifesto.
If you want to come back and talk about the Communist Manifesto, I actually have a whole video on the section about the nuclear family, but we're not going to be digging through documents while I'm live on the stream and trying to manage other things. But I do appreciate it, guys. I want to say to the chat, please stick around. We're going to do a debrief, but I do want to, you guys are welcome to bounce if you want. I don't know. You told me you had an hour, so you can stick around and talk if you want, but you also are welcome to go.
Yeah, I think we'll take off, but cool. Thank you. And thank you for that song at the beginning. Wonderful song of the German working class. Appreciated that.
Cool. All right, guys.
We'll see you in New York. Take care. Bye-bye.
See you guys. Have a good one. Bye. Well, that was something. Stick around, guys. We're going to do a little bit of a debrief. I'm going to go through the super chats that I didn't get to. I do apologize if I didn't get through your super chat. That was just like, I picked out the super chats to show based on who I thought asked the most pertinent questions at any given time. And so if I didn't get to yours, I do apologize. It was just, you guys saw, it was very fast. It was very heated. They had a lot to say. First, I want to ask, how do you think that went? What do you guys think? I'm now looking at the chat on YouTube. I'm looking at the chat on Rumble. And I apologize again, Rumble. I see Rumble rants coming in over there that I didn't get to those. It was just really fast. And hopefully they come back. I really do mean that. Hopefully they come back. And hopefully they stand by their word that I get to go to Marxist school, because I've wanted to go to Marxist school for like over a year now. So hopefully it all works out. Let's see what people had to say. Are we still watching Hitler? No, I don't think I'm going to watch Hitler today, Yasmin. Thank you, though. Thank you, though. Great job. Excellent. It did flow by. It flew by. Yep. Yeah, I think it seemed like they were a little bit nervous. I was a little bit nervous as well, but I kind of sunk right into it. They didn't really answer many of the questions. Like, they would do these roundabout things. What it was is they obviously had their talking points that they rehearsed, excuse me, over and over and over and over and over again. And so it was more like a lot of their talking points, and then maybe we nailed them on a couple things. Yeah, I don't think some of the stuff they were saying was altogether truthful, but that's okay. That's okay. It went by fast, covered a lot. I did ruffle JP's feathers a little bit, I think. Yep. Thank you, guys. It was good. I thought it was good to see them live. I thought it was good to see them, and it was like it's weird, isn't it? It's like you're talking to the actual communists that we've been watching on the show. It's weird. Thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. I mean, I think that this was also like good practice to be able to have these discussions in the future. Micah says, wow, that was tough to listen to. These people do not understand human behavior at all. Well, but I think that's important, right? Because we need to understand their perspective. Like, I don't hate either of them. I'm not going to go, like, I don't think Tom or JP are like, I don't think they're bad people. I don't think they're evil people. I think that they are in an insular community. I think they're in a cult. I'm sorry. I think that socialism, communism is a cult. I don't want anyone to like, it's just like, it's what I think. I think you're in an insular community where you're only talking to other communists. You're not talking to anyone outside of it. And maybe like, it is like not an unrealistic thing that maybe I'm literally like the first anarcho-capitalist that they've talked to in like a long time, if ever. Honestly, maybe that's the case. MYMJ over on Rumble says they had guts to show up. I agree with that. I think it was very ballsy of them to come and talk to me. I agree with that. Let me see. I just saw another super chat come in. Yep, we give them credit for coming on. Yeah, so I did. So it was actually funny, Kristen. I actually asked them about queer Marxism before we went live, and what they said, and I would love to have a further conversation with them about this. We just didn't get to it. What they said to me off air was queer Marxism is not real Marxism. So I was like, oh, you really don't know you're going to be co-opted by the queer Marxists, do you? Oh, they're nervous because most people haven't read their literature or watched their people's live streams. Well, we've watched their live streams. We've watched their videos. We've watched them. We watched hours of their content on this channel. Yeah, it's called the Utopia for a reason. Exactly. Let me just like look at the Rumble chat really quickly. I know I had a few Rumble rants come in there from Channel 007. The Communist Revolution, 4 million after Communist Revolution, 4 million people died in Ukraine. Yup. MYMJ says they will never be able to organize their society to deliver what everyone wants. That's pure. Yup, I agree with that. Let me go into the super chats, guys, and I do want to make sure that I acknowledge all of the super chats that people sent in if I didn't ask your question. Milo says, I am tired of all the fake anarcho-communists misrepresenting communists. Thanks for having on some good old-fashioned tankies to represent real Marxist communism. Yep. Alex says, I dated a woman who escaped communist Cuba. I myself am a former Soviet Union Jew. We need to pack your bags and living. No, we're not playing that game, Alex. Come on. Beth, I apologize. I didn't get to your question. So who decides since the different factions of socialism disagree on the definition of private property? Well, this was something I nailed them on though, because they couldn't wrap their heads around the other groups. And what happens if in their utopia, they're not actually the ones in charge? So that was something they don't have a good answer for at all. So yeah, and I do think your farmland would probably be reallocated. Like, did you notice they said at the end, we'll allow you to have a little land in New Hampshire. Oh, you'll allow me? You'll allow me to have the property that I own and that other people own? You'll allow me to have that property? That wording was interesting to me. I was like, oh. If you want to see what socialism does, look at what happened to Black America after the 1960s when they were basically put into a socialist system in the US. It destroyed the entire culture. Yep. They did answer this. Real communism has never been tried. I told you that they would say that real communism has never been tried. Rottweiler, I really wanted to get to this question about generational wealth. I just didn't have the opportunity to get it in there, but I'm so glad you asked that question, and I do hope we'll be able to ask them that question in the future. I was like, would affordable housing be in the cities? That would have been a good question too, Bot. Yep. Positive peer pressure food incentives. Yep. Bill, I apologize for not getting to your questions. I have a question for Tom. If the socialist utopia is reached, what happens to the trade unions? That's also a really great question. If everyone gets the same, who do they negotiate or strike to for better pay and conditions? That's a really great question. I think the idea that they were trying to articulate is that everything will be in the form of a co-op. And so you'll have direct ownership of the companies. And so I imagine it's something like that, but I could be wrong. I apologize. I didn't get to your question, Rosie. How would you fill jobs that need to be filled, but may have a few people willing to take those jobs? I think what they kind of seem to be saying at the beginning is like people would be forced to do a job. Like they were like, they're just things that people are going to be forced to do some sort of job that they might not want to do. But as the communist utopia develops, you are going to have more freedom in what type of job you have. I think is their answer. Yasmin says, billionaires are creative. Why do you feel entitled to take their hard-earned money? Especially if we choose to. Yeah, I mean, I tried to get around to that, Yasmin. It's just like this idea, it's like this idea that you can't just utilize free resources to start a business in today's age is stupid. Like, I'm sorry. They kept trying to make fun of oh, you do AI and you sell t-shirts. Ha ha ha. How silly. You think everyone can do that? I'm like, yes, literally. Everyone can do that. You don't need to be a billionaire. You don't need to have a big industry in order to start a business under capitalism in order to sell stuff that you can be sustainable. Literally everyone should start a business. I really mean that. Everyone listening right now should start a business. All of us should start businesses. Dragontail, sorry I didn't get to your question. Many of your talking points are all the same as the WEF. Oh my God, the globalist stuff. I would have, this is a good question for them. Are they aligned with the WEF? Of course they're not. But the globalist stuff, I was like, that was a road I didn't even want to go down because I'm like, here we go. Here we go. Thank you, Bad Cat, for your super chat. I apologize I didn't get to it. Let's see. Amelia says, I was expecting better arguments from them. Cons do not get culture and leftists do not get systems and incentives. I don't trust them to manage a thing. Yeah, I agree with that. I really think that they just do not understand human nature. And I also think, quite frankly, I feel like they have a really low view of what human beings are capable of. I really think that they really think that most human beings aren't capable of very basic things. And I understand the idea of people get caught in poverty and that sucks. And you don't want anyone to be poor and you don't want anyone to go without. But that doesn't mean that you can't. There are millions of examples of people who are born in poverty and live in poverty that that lift themselves up through their own hard work, their own ingenuity, their own individualism, their own meritocracy. One of the things I really wanted to ask them about is JP seemed to insinuate that like I'm against free speech or I'm against people like exercising their right to speech and I just want to silence people. And I almost been like, JP, there is a video on the Red May YouTube channel, Red May being Radical Revolutionary Socialist out of Seattle, called The Propertied Regime, in which they literally say that individual liberties are private property that should be abolished under socialism. And you're telling me I'm the one against individual liberties? No, bro. You guys are the ones that are against individual liberties, and I have video of you saying it. Now interview a theology expert in Gnosticism. Maybe we'll do that later, Milo. Maybe. Dragon Tail says, every influencer should have been on this stream, hoping this goes viral. I mean, yeah, I hope people watch. That would be nice. Thank you, Dragon Tail, for being a member of the channel. But they don't think people outside the club... Well, that's exactly it. I really think that I don't think that they've probably interacted with someone like me, where they seem to think that the only reason that I'm watching this stuff is that I'm pissed off about it, or that, I don't think that they probably ever talked to someone like me that is not a communist, that has probably watched more communist and socialist material than they have. I'm waiting for the James Lindsay Twitter tantrum with this stream. I mean, yeah, we'll see. James Lindsay's audience was tweeting about how fat and ugly I am earlier today. Like, that's their answer, is like, oh, Carlin's so fat and ugly and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, they're like, Carlin is using filters on her photos. And I'm like, I'm literally on the internet 6 days a week. You can see what I look like. I'm on video right now. I'm not trying to hide what I look like. Jesus Christ. How would they have managed the COVID-19 pandemic? That's a good question, Shannon. I don't know the answer to that. And then Angel Eyes, our last super chat for the moment. They just sound like they're copying Cloward Piven or Saul Alinsky's theories. I think I got here a little late, so sorry if this is already asked. That wasn't my interpretation of it, Angel Eyes, but I can definitely understand why you may have thought that. All right. Oh yeah, this is James is going to completely ignore this. James didn't get to talk to the communists. And so James actually doesn't even really understand who these people are or what they're doing. James thinks they're the same old, like, revolutionary, like the RevComs, and they're not. They're a completely different group than the RedComs. James does not understand this because James doesn't look into these things, but we understand it. Anyway, that's really all I have today, guys. A little bit of a shorter Socialism Saturday. Melody, welcome, Melody. Excellent content. Glad I found you, new subscriber. Welcome, Melody. So, guys, if you're new to me, what we do on my channel is we do deep dives into the far left. Most of the time, what we do is we watch far left content and we kind of talk about it and we analyze it. Normally, Socialism Saturday will go on for 3, 4, 5 hours, but we have a little bit of a shorter episode tonight because we just had that interview. But if you want to know what the left is doing, if you want to know what the left is talking about in the real world, come back to my channel. I do Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. We do Saturdays at 6 p.m. because it's my weekend too, and I have other stuff I need to do on Saturdays. And so you can always find it here. Yeah, Wendy, you should be able to watch the recording on Twitter. It'll be up after this. Also, you can also find me on YouTube. You can find me on Rumble. So everything will stay on demand. And of course, you guys can subscribe to my Substack, which is carlin.substack.com. And that will, I'm going to be posting this to that as well. So it'll be in all of these places. So it is recorded. Amelia says, also, you did a good job holding them to task. This reminded me of Stefan Molyneux's communism debates he used to have. It's frustrating that they only deconstruct and make a few positive comments. I mean, I guess if there is one wish that I would have had for this, it's that I wish they had just answered the questions. Honestly, like, this is my biggest frustration, is like they were not able to answer the questions simply and directly. And it's like, it was kind of frustrating to me where we just kept getting like drawn around. Like if I asked, do you guys believe that parental rights are private property? Well, in the history of Marxist thought, blah, 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 blah. It's like, it's a whole fucking 10-minute story around something that could have literally been a yes or no answer. And I'm sorry, like, this really, like, the fact that JP wants to deny that abolishing the family is in the Communist Manifesto, bro. It is explicit, and I know, like, people might have been upset, like, but I was managing a chat, I was managing an interview. I wasn't gonna go flip through the goddamn, like, find a PDF of the Communist Manifesto and find the part where it's about abolish the nuclear. It's like, it's a short book, you should be able to find it. Well, you guys are only here for an hour. So no, I'm not gonna go like Google to find a fucking PDF of the Communist Manifesto. But anyone who doesn't think that abolish the family is literally in the Communist Manifesto, all you need to do is Google abolish the family Communist Manifesto and you're going to find it. But maybe they'll come back and talk about that another time. James reads their literature. Carlin analyzes their lives. No, Sven. No. James can go fuck himself. James and I will never be friends. James and I will never work together. Sven, James literally is telling people that I'm a member of a queer Gnostic sex cult. That's real. James Lindsay on Twitter last night tweeted out to his 500,000 followers that I am a member of a queer Gnostic sex cult. For real. So if you think I'm ever going to work with James, James should be begging for the information that I have. James should be up our ass to get the information that we have. He's not. Not only is he not, he's lying to millions of people about what is going on, and he's trying to tell people that I'm a queer, not in a queer Gnostic sex cult. So no, it's war, mother effers. It's war. And I'm not the one who started the war. James Lindsay is the one that started the war. Thank you, Charles, for the super sticker. I do appreciate it. Short book, 49 pages. Well, I mean, it is a short... The Communist Manifesto is provably a short book, but, like, when I'm on a live stream and I'm trying to listen, and I'm also trying to manage a chat, like, I'm not going to go dig through the Communist Manifesto for something that is obviously and clearly in there, you know? Yeah, James probably does want to be in a Gnostic sex cult. True. Anyway, guys, that's all we have for tonight. Happy 420. Again, I am taking the day off tomorrow because I usually don't stream on Sundays. But if you do want to join us for movie night, we are watching The East tomorrow in my supporter Discord. You can head over to my Substack, which is Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. Sign up as a supporter for $8 a month, $80 a year. I will be posting some more stuff to the Substack tonight, and we will be watching The East in my supporter Discord tomorrow at 8 p.m. I will be sending out a newsletter tomorrow with the Unwoke Roundup that will have your access key to the supporter Discord. It will also have your weekly Zoom links. It'll have 10% off in the Unwoke Art merch store, and we got a lot of cool merch going up. There's going to be a lot of cool merch going up in the store based on this new zine thing that we're doing. So that's all we have for tonight, guys. I appreciate you hanging out. Thank you for the support. I will be back streaming on Monday, and I will see you guys tomorrow in the supporter Discord for movie night. Happy 420. Smoke them if you got them. Bye, guys. Have a good one. Take care.